العالمين وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. Okay. بسم الله والحمد لله والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا رسول الله نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه من والاه. I'll start immediately inshallah. A quick review. So, what have we been doing the last couple of times? First lesson we talked about what is Tajweed in general. And we talked that Tajweed focuses mostly on what is a letter. And we talked about a letter is scientifically defined by the place of articulation and the properties. خلاص? If you weren't here before, all you need to remember is place of articulation is the physical place where you emit a certain letter. A letter is a sound, so you have a physical place in your mouth, in your throat, a certain movement that you do to emit that sound. That physical place is called the place of articulation. So what we're basically doing nowadays, last class, and we're continuing this class, is we're basically looking at all the places of articulation of the letters. We're going to go through every single letter, and then we're going to say where in the mouth, in the throat, in the tongue, do I actually have to move to actually emit that sound? Okay? So we did last class, we said there is 29 letters in the Arabic language, and there's different ways to order them. Then we talked about the different places of articulation. We said there is general places of articulation and there is specific places of articulation. General places of articulation like what? Like the throat. The throat has three specific articulations. Have down there, in the middle, close to the tongue. 2 letters come from here, 2 letters come from the middle, 2 letters come near the tongue, or actually from the root of the tongue, right? So we made the distinction between general places of articulation and specific. Just a quick example before we go through. The letter that we finished last time was, for example, ayn, ayn, a, a. What actually moves for that sound to be emitted? Well, we said it's the epiglottis. It's the middle of the throat. The middle of the throat makes a movement. This is the back here, and this is the epiglottis, and it makes a full movement, and then it goes back. It makes a full movement, and then it goes back. Ah, 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 and that's why it closes. Ah, and then the sound stops. Ah, ah, ah. Ah, right? So what is this place of articulation? It's generally the throat, and the throat has 3 specific, the middle one. Okay? So this is basically what we're doing. We're looking at the specific place of articulation that letter emits out. Why are we doing that? Well, because some of us are getting the letters wrong. We're actually not emitting it from the correct spot. So what do? Check where you're emitting it, check what is the correct one, and make some compromises. خلاص? We talked about the relationship between feeling, where you're exactly emitting, the sound, and the description. If you have a feeling for where the letter comes from, and you have a correlation between the feeling and the sound, when someone recites to you and he says it wrong, you will know already what he's doing. So if someone, for example, is going a little up when he says ayn, it goes a little up. You'll actually, because you have some understanding of the relationship between the feeling and the sound, you'll actually know exactly, even without looking, where his mistake is from. So what I'm trying to do is to grasp a good relationship between feeling where I'm at in my tongue or mouth or throat, and the description the shuyukh has given me. The description is, oh, move this. Oh, go there. Go there. Once I have the feeling and I correlate it with the description the mashayikh have written, now I'm doing the letter correctly. So that's exactly why we're learning the places of articulation, to make that relationship. Okay? So We talked about jawf. Jawf was a weird one, so I'm not going to go through it again. And 3 letters come from there. We talked about alif maddiya, waw maddiya. We don't have time, so I'm not really going to go through it. And then we went through the throat, and we said there's 3 specific makharij. There's the vocal cords, there's the epiglottis, that thing right there, and there's the root of the tongue. The vocal cords come from it, hamza and ha. It's the lowest place you can reach because it's literally the vocal cords. Then you have the ayn and ha. Look right there. Look the epiglottis. Here the epiglottis is normal. Look how the epiglottis have moved. You see that? I don't know if that's very clear. But the epiglottis here is in normal position. But here, it actually moved a little backwards. And then ghayn and kha, we said it's the root of the tongue. It's not the tongue itself, it's the root of the tongue. That's why we put it in the throat area. Okay? I'm going through this quickly because I want to start the lesson, inshallah. Okay? Okay. Now we're going to start. Now we're going to slow down a little bit and we're going to talk. So, now we're going to talk about letters that come from the general makhraj of the tongue. So again, I have general makharij, general places of articulation, general instruments that I use to emit a letter. The biggest one that has the most letter is the tongue. So, the reason we're explaining the different areas of the tongue is because we're going to use these areas to describe the letters, right? So when I say the root of the tongue, I mean this part. The root of the tongue is not part of the tongue when we're describing. It's part of the throat. Then you have the furthest part, the middle, and the tip is this whole thing. So when I say the tip of the tongue with the gums, this area. So when I say the noon comes from the tip of the tongue with the gums, then you know it, the tip of this is that part. Okay? Now, sometimes I'll tell you the edge. So when I tell you the edge of the tongue with the molars, then you know what I'm talking about. So I have the furthest part of the tongue, this area. Then I have the middle, and then I have the tip. Okay? I went through that a little too quickly. I'm still going quickly. Does that make sense? Good? Because I'm going to use this again. And to be honest, every time I use it, I'll probably come back to this slide. But again, furthest part, middle, tip, and then the sides. And this is what I'm going to use to actually explain where the letters come from, okay? Okay, teeth. Basically, what I really want you to care about, to be honest, here, is the premolar and the 3 molar teeth. Okay? So, what actually happens is you have 3 molar teeth, then you have the premolar, then the canine and the incisors, whatever. Like all of this area. Then you have a premolar right here, and then you have 3 molars and then the wisdom tooth. What I want you to care about, there's a lot of information here. What I really want you to care about here is the premolar. Why? Because the premolar is going to be important in 2 letters, the lam and dad. Okay? So, the premolar, then the 3 molar, then the wisdom tooth. Right? Then you have the 2 front incisors and the lateral incisor. Okay? Again, I'll probably come back to this again when we're explaining the letter exactly. But again, what I want you to care about is the premolar, because the premolar is where the next chapter opens. It's like the middle, right? So it's going to be very important. Does that make sense? Last thing. This is the most annoying part, so bear with me. I know it's the most annoying part. But basically, the upper palate, so the tongue is hitting somewhere. The tongue, when it presses, when I say the tip of the tongue, with what? With what am I hitting? Well, I'm hitting the upper palate, right? So I have the gums, I have the pre-palate, the hard palate, and then the soft palate. Okay, we're gonna come back to this again, but I'm just giving you an overview just to recognize the words I'm gonna use. When I use them, I'm gonna come back to these pictures, but I'm gonna use these words. I'm gonna use soft palate. I'm gonna use hard palate. I'm gonna use tip. I'm gonna use furthest part. I'm gonna use these words. Just I want you to know where exactly in general it is, and then when you're practicing on your own, you can make the correlations yourself. خلاص? So let's start with the first one. But I'll just make one more review. I have the root of the tongue, furthest part, middle, tip, sides. That's it. Pretty easy. Teeth, just remember the premolar and the molars. Upper palate, soft, hard, and everybody knows the gums anyway. And we're not going to probably use the pre-palate. So soft, hard, and the gums. Okay? Now we're going to start. Yeah, bismillah. Okay. Qaw. Qaw. Now,